And just wanted to say I'm glad to be back, and thank you for members of council for holding down the fort. While Councillor Loynes and I were down at ICSC Whistler, talking to a few businesses and retailers and trying to promote the town of Stony Plain. Before we call it to order, just wanted to say thanks and kudos to our town staff, Public Works especially, for the work that you guys are doing, or you guys and ladies are doing on the snow clearing. Definitely appreciate a lot of comments and emails coming back that they appreciate the work that our community does versus some others. But I do have one complaint about that, and that's just a personal complaint. My road is not yet done, and so reality is that it's not done. Perception is that the mirrors get done first, so I'm not too sure what overrides what. So perception override reality, and I should get done today, or should I just wait in the process? Thank you.
Your Worship, thank you for registering your concern about the snow snow scheduling and removal for the town. If you would like to register your concern with the town, we're certainly open to that. We do follow a schedule based out of our public staff for best practices, and we appreciate every resident's patience as we approach this service we deliver to town residents.
Okay.
Your Worship, I would further add that if you would like, you can author a letter to the mayor. He is very quick to respond to customers' concerns. So.
Thank you very much. And as a resident of Stony Plain, I might have to do that because my snow is not quite yet done yet. Members of council, there's an agenda before you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I make the motion, while you were away, I specifically asked that Public Works avoid your street and wait till you get back. All kidding aside, we'll have the motion there, please. Thank you. Move that the February 6th, I think no, that's right. February 6th, 2023 Governance Priorities Committee meeting agenda be accepted as presented here this evening.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Administration, anything to add to the agenda tonight?
Nothing further, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor?
I apologize for the confusion. I have January 23rd minutes beside me here, and so the date threw us off.
Actually, just a quick point of order.
Yes.
I'm having troubles opening the agenda on my computer.
Okay. Can we get some IT staff to help Councillor Meyer with the agenda, please? And I think Councillor Meyer is okay if we continue to go on this. It's just a public input session, which should be okay. Members of council, moving in our agenda number 3 is the public input session. Today we have one presenter right now that has registered, and it is Sherry Ratsoy from the Parkland Food Bank. So welcome. And please take a seat and go ahead and speak directly into the mic and when you're ready.
Do I need to push anything? I won't even sit long or take much of your time, but as you guys know, we're having our biggest fundraiser coming up for Parkland Food Bank here on February 25th, and I think the vast majority of this council has signed up and registered to walk. She says, I heard that melody. That was good. I couldn't have said that better myself, but that's okay. We'll forgive some people if they don't. This is our biggest fundraiser of the year. We hope to raise $90,000. We are falling short of that goal as of now, though. We're $10,000 behind where we were at this point last year, so we definitely need to get a move on. $90,000 reflects how much we'll spend on eggs this year, just to give you an idea of what that would buy us. So I was just hoping to take 2 minutes of the council's time. I have your toques here for those who have registered to walk. I was hoping to maybe just take a couple pictures. This is a little bit of a competition between Spruce Grove and Parkland County Council. I'll be doing the same thing with them. So hopefully maybe a nice serious one, and maybe one, you know, grr, we're gonna get ya, who knows, so you guys can play it by ear. So if you guys are ready, I have your toques. I'm sorry to mess up your hair, ladies, right before your meeting, but if you guys don't mind, you don't have to wear your toques, but.
Okay. And definitely don't mind, and definitely on behalf of our council and our community, thank you for the work that you do with the Parkland Food Bank. I know a lot of times that happen in our community that somebody needs a hand up, and you're always there to give them the hands up, so to help them just bridge the gap until they get back on their feet. So thank you for the work that you do in our community.
Well, thank you for the support of Town of Stony Plain and the staff, and Justin for getting this team up and going and leading the charge with his most fundraising right now.
That's excellent. Thank you very much. Members of council, any comments before we go now? Councillor Lowry, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and thank you, Sherry, for coming this evening. I do want to say we are in the lead as of right now between Spruce Grove and Parkland County Council.
Ooh, did you just look that up? Because you guys have been back and forth.
It was close. We've been back and forth, so keep that up. But I do actually want to give a huge commendation as well to our staff. I think our staff has a team, and they are well above us as well, and they're doing very good with that. So kudos to them. I think Parklands includes their staff. So we're, even with that in there, if we took our staff and added to ours, we're doing very good. So I really appreciate the event, the coldest night of the year. It's been, oh goodness, I can't remember how many years you've been doing it now, but quite a few. We know the numbers, we've seen the numbers, they continue to climb, and that support is necessary so greatly in our community right now. So appreciate the opportunity to participate in that and do what we can to help spread that message as well.
Thank you. Councillor Pletchko.
Well, Sherry, I'm the lone wolf of the bunch here that haven't signed up yet, but I've got really good excuses, but I'm not going to give you any of them. Just watch, I will be adding to that, just so you know.
Sounds good.
I will be putting my name there. Many changes in my life in the last 2 weeks has complicated a lot of things, but we're moving forward with each and every one of them, and the group that I have become part of, I'm very sure they're a local group out of Spruce Grove that will be very supportive of the things I do within our communities. So the move will be very well for it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being a good sport on the teasing.
Members of council, any other comments before we go for a picture? Okay, seeing none, let's join Sherry in the front and get a picture. Yes, hopefully that the weather is cooperative that evening and we can have a nice 5-kilometer walk or jog, and then we can actually raise some funds and some awareness. Well, thank you very much, and appreciate Sherry coming to council and raising the awareness for us. Members of council, moving on to number 4 is presentations and delegations. Oh, sorry. Yes, and today we have 1 is 4.1, which is the broadband strategy. Administration?
And members of council, I'll just ask our Economic Development Officer, Michelle Lavasser, to introduce the broadband strategy and our guest speaker this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. The broadband strategy was approved in the corporate plan, 2022 to 2024 corporate plan. Since it was approved, the town commissioned RSM Canada and Taylor Warwick to assist in the development of the strategy with the objectives to understand the current service levels, assets in the community, along with our desired future state. Taking into consideration the tri-municipal and Edmonton region, the strategy work also identified gaps between the current and future states, along with options to enhance broadband services in Stony Plain. I'm really pleased to introduce Savan Dhaliwal from RSM Canada, who will provide a brief overview of the final strategy.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Your Worship, and members of the council and town administration as well for having me here today. Today we'll be going over a brief summary of the broadband strategy report to provide some key insights that are going to be very, very important for the residents of Stony Plain to really understand and for the council to embrace as well. Now, the agenda for today, and there's a couple items on it. We'll quickly go over a project overview. I think Michelle has kind of done that for us already. So from there, we'll jump into just a review of current internet service levels that we saw within Stony Plain, really take a look at those, the current state at the moment. We'll also be looking at survey insights that we got as well. We had posted a survey out to the residents and businesses of Stony Plain to understand their current sentiment with the service levels across the town. And so we'll delve into some of the insights that we've gained from them as well. From there, understanding from there and the understanding from the current state, we'll jump into some of the considerations for the future state and the options that Stony Plain has as you move forward and think about the future and growing Stony Plain to 30,000 residents over the next decade. We'll finish off with a conclusion, which is a bit of a summary of what we talk about, and we'll leave it there today. So the project overview, I won't stay here for too long. This is what Michelle has already gone through with us, but really it's what she stated there. We looked at the current state service levels. We took a look at the providers that were in Stony Plain. We took a look at some of the communities outside of Stony Plain, near Stony Plain, and what they were doing in consideration of their strategies. We took a look at what service standards should be in today's day and age. We also took a look at what the future holds and what service levels will be needed for the future. And all of that was essentially utilized to develop a gap analysis and a consideration of options for a go-forward strategy and approach. So first, and perhaps I'll summarize a little bit further in terms of what it was that we really took a look at. So the analysis really encapsulated consulting with the municipalities in and around the region. There was documentation review that had occurred from the incumbents as well as the city, and the incumbent providers, I should say. We took a look at ISPs in the region, understood what their service levels were, and we conducted a series of interviews as well. We also collected data through a internet speed test and through results that were gathered through there, and also the citizen and business survey that I had mentioned. All of that information that we gathered through there has culminated into this final report that we're presenting here today. Now, if we jump into the current state, really there's three different sets of data that we took a look at to understand the current state of Stony Plain. The first was taking a look at internet speed levels through speed tests that were done by citizens and businesses themselves. This gave us really an understanding of at the ground level what are citizens and businesses experiencing today. We then took a look at what the advertised speed levels were from incumbents, so what speeds do citizens potentially have access to. Whether or not they've subscribed to them or not is a different story, but something that we'll take a look at as well. And then we also did take a look at the survey results around the sentiment for what speed levels were from citizens and businesses and their satisfaction levels with the speeds and services that they receive today. So all three of those were taken into consideration, and we'll go through each one of those sets of data here. So first, what you'll see on the screen here is a table that outlines the speed test results that we got from CIRA, which is the Canadian Internet Registration Authority. They have done multiple speed tests in Alberta in particular. They've ran speed tests for municipalities as well, and we chose them to run a speed test and to utilize to run a speed test for the town of Stony Plain as well, which was promoted to the town through social media, through newsletters, and also on the radio as well. So we tried to get as many speed test results as possible. Now, this is one view into the data that we looked at, and what we see here is interesting. We see 15 subdivisions that meet CRTC 5010 universal service objectives. We see another 15 that fall below those 5010 objectives, and then we see 6 subdivisions which don't have any tests at this moment. Now, this was all data gathered from 2015 until now, and it provides us one view, provides us the largest data set for what we're seeing. But we also know that there have been some recent infrastructure upgrades from the incumbent providers in the town as well. And so we took this view and from what we were seeing, and we just simply looked at the data from August 2022 to January 2023, just to see what was occurring there. And what became very apparent as we looked at that data set is that speeds have increased over time and have increased quite significantly, and recently those have been quite significant in nature as well. What we do see when we're kind of parsing out the data from the two highest subscribed to incumbents or service providers, TELUS and Shaw, we see that Shaw has speeds that are quite a bit orders of magnitude faster than what TELUS has at the moment in most subdivisions. So we're seeing a positive trend in that the incumbents are increasing their speeds here in the town. But we're also seeing that there is still some work to do to get service levels across the board to where they need to be. Now, this is something that we need to take a look into further in terms of why are we seeing speed levels at what they are today. And to look at this, we need to also understand what service levels or what is actually provided, or what can ISPs today actually provide to the majority of the town. Now, this table here provides a good view into that. What we can see, and what you see in the dark green there, is really 11 subdivisions that have access to speeds of 1 gigabit per second download, 1 gigabit per second upload speeds, in other words, 1 gigabit symmetrical services that are available to 11 subdivisions already. So 1 gigabit per second symmetrical or higher that we're seeing. And that's mainly from a TELUS pure fiber build out that's been occurring in the town for a couple of years now. And what we're also seeing in the other, in another 21 subdivisions, is that Shaw is providing access to speeds of about 1,000 megabits per second download, or 1 gigabit per second download, with 100 megabit per second upload speeds. Now, when we look at that, that's a vast majority of the town, 32 subdivisions that have access to great speeds. What we're seeing, however, and if we're comparing this to the results that we saw in the speed tests, those actual speed tests that were conducted by citizens and businesses, we're seeing there's a bit of a disconnect there. Folks aren't seeing these speed levels in the current day. And in a moment, we'll take a look at some survey results that we got back to as well. But this is all alluding to what seems to be alluding to the fact that citizens and businesses are perhaps not subscribing to the highest service levels that they have in their particular subdivision. Now, this is very important to note, very important for citizens to note as well, and for the council to note, because if citizens aren't subscribed to the highest service levels that they can possibly get, it's also a signal to the market of what the needs are for Stony Plain. And for citizens, citizens play a large role in really making and signaling out to the market that high speeds are needed here. So it is a recommendation to all citizens to subscribe to those speeds that they need, to the highest speed levels that they need, and to look to see where and which providers actually give that to them in their particular location. Now, there are 4 subdivisions here that you can see in red that did not have what we consider to be adequate speeds or advertised speeds for the future. Those are areas north of Highway 16A, so we're talking about the North Business Park, Umbach Business Park, we're talking about Meridian Meadows, where internet speeds, high speeds are not available, or what we would call ultra high speeds at that 1 gigabit per second or beyond are not available. We also see rural areas, especially Rosenthal and States, that you'll see that doesn't have any services from Shaw or TELUS as well. And those are some of the major gaps that we're seeing. Overarchingly, really what this is showing, and if we compare this again to the speed results, the main story here is that the majority of the town is covered quite well by incumbent providers at the moment. The town has access to speed levels that are quite significant. And in a moment, we'll also consider this in consideration of the future as well. And you'll see, in fact, that the town is well covered for at least the near future, but the town needs to prepare for the longer term future. And we'll get to that in a moment here as well. Before we do so, we'll just quickly pause at some of the survey results that we got back, which are also important to take a look at in light of some of the speed test data and the advertised speed data that we got back as well. Really what we see here, and the most important graph on this slide are the ones in the top right corners, or the right-hand side, I should say, of the slide. Really what that's telling us is the levels that citizens have and businesses have indicated that they have subscribed to. And what we see overarchingly is that citizens are not subscribed and businesses are not subscribed to the highest levels that they could possibly get. This also might be a factor of some of them not being in the right areas, but overarchingly with the results that we got back, you can see that they're not subscribing to those 1 gigabit per second and faster speeds that are available in a majority of areas. So this is again alluding to that fact that citizens and businesses are not subscribing to the highest levels that they should be, or that they can be, I should say. When we look at satisfaction levels as well, this is another important metric. We see that residents, a large majority of them, are either satisfied or neutral with the level of speeds that they're experiencing today, while only 30% of business respondents are neutral or satisfied. This could also be an indication of the fact that a lot of the speed tests, again, for the speed levels in the North Business Parks, are not adequate at this moment. So this might be pointing to some of that we're seeing through this satisfaction levels as well. We're also seeing that the majority of Shaw subscribers are quite satisfied, where the majority of TELUS subscribers are not satisfied. That again falls in line with some of what we're seeing around the highest levels of service that are available. Generally, Shaw has higher levels of service available in most subdivisions. Now, when we look at value in customer service, these are other metrics that we took a look at as well. Overarchingly, value, when citizens and businesses responded to our question of how valuable do you think your service is, or do you think you're actually getting the most value out of your services, there was a large negative sentiment, and this is in fact something that we see across Canada in general, where we pay some of the highest rates for data in the world. And so this is almost in line with what we see even through other surveys as well. And customer service metrics, there's not really much to be gained from there. The majority of folks are either satisfied or neutral with customer service from their incumbent providers right now at the moment as well. So really when we're looking at that and all of the data, again, it falls along that same storyline of the town of Stony Plain has adequate service levels through the majority of the town. They have, the town has quite significant speeds in a lot of areas. However, it looks like citizens might not be subscribing to those highest speeds. And so that is likely a key focus point that needs to be considered here as the town moves forward. Now, when we look at the future state, we need to see whether or not these service levels will be good for the future. And what you can see in this graph here is that up to 2028, in fact, the town of Stony Plain with current service levels in most of those subdivisions is likely well covered. When we look beyond 2028, when we start to get into 2023, when we start to look more than a decade ahead, faster speeds are going to be needed for sure. What we do know as well, though, is that the incumbents, TELUS and Shaw, have capabilities of increasing speeds beyond what they are today. We know that Shaw's infrastructure technically could be upgraded to provide 2.5 gigabit per second symmetrical services. We know that TELUS's fiber optic cable and infrastructure on that end can also push speeds well beyond 2 gigabits per second symmetrical as well. So when we look into the future, there is good coverage by the incumbent providers today. but there still needs to be some focus put on them to continue to upgrade infrastructure moving into the future here as well. Now, when we consider the options that Stony Plain has as you move forward, really there's 5 options that became apparent to us through the gaps that we saw through what was needed in the town of Stony Plain. We also took a look at tactical tactical options as well. Tactical options are more for the near term for the town to fill the gaps that we see today that need to be filled in the North Business Parks and in the rural areas and in Rosenthal and States. Now, the strategic options, we should be thinking about these more as the longer term. What do we actually take a look at for that longer term, and how can we influence broadband service levels over the longer term? The first option, and an option that's taken by many, is just to leave the issue to private industry. Essentially allow market forces to shape broadband network enhancement and allow that to be the main mode here. Now, again, as mentioned, TELUS and Shaw, they're pre-positioned to have some quite good infrastructure upgrades here in the town, which could essentially mean that the town is well covered into the future as well. So it's something to consider on that end. Again, with this status, or this option 1 of staying status quo, it's again important for citizens to be subscribing to those highest levels, again, to push those incumbents to increase their service levels in the town as they see the need to do so. Option 2 is about adopting fiber-friendly policies and engineering guidelines. This is something that we recommend the town do regardless of any of the other options. There's a reason that we put that question mark there, and it's because it's not necessarily a way in which to impact deployment, but it does future-proof the town by ensuring that in any new developments or any new brownfield developments, that you save trenching costs and have internet service availability there whenever you're considering those redevelopments or new developments. In option 3, the town can augment market demand, really negotiate with incumbents or new partners to improve services in Stony Plain. Option 4 is to establish a dark or lit network utility, really to establish a network that is owned by the town of Stony Plain that will essentially ensure that you are in control of your broadband future. And option 5 is to become a full-on retail provider, which is not something that we recommend. So really out of these options, what we're thinking is that the town of Stony Plain should consider options 1, 3, and 4 for its influence in deployment, and should definitely adopt option 2 with those fiber-friendly guidelines and policies. Strategically, when we take a look at the nearer term and we take a look at what Stony Plain needs to fill in terms of gaps, we see that there's not such adequate service in the North and Umbach business parks. We also see that the rural areas such as Rosenthal and States and other areas outside of the urban areas of Stony Plain do not have adequate service. So in these areas, this is where we might need to deploy some tactical options. On the one hand, Stony Plain could work with incumbents or new partners to deploy and prioritize services in some of those underserved areas. There's also opportunity there to deploy some new new wireless wave technology or urban millimeter wave technology as well to provide services up to 1 gigabit per second over a wireless option, which is quite cost effective compared to deploying full fiber networks as well. So those are the considerations when it really comes to those tactical gaps that are there and to fill those up at the moment. Now really when we're looking at it, and in conclusion, really what it comes down to is that 90% of the town subdivisions really are covered by adequate speeds at the moment. 1,000 megabytes up, 100 megabits per second down are quite fast, high-speed broadband speeds. However, we still see that many of the citizens have expressed dissatisfaction with their current service levels. We see that they haven't subscribed to their highest service levels as well. And that might be perhaps through a lack of awareness or just it being cost prohibitive at the moment. If again, we take a look at some of those value metrics we saw, we could see that it can be cost prohibitive for some. Citizens in these areas should definitely subscribe to the highest levels that they can, again, pushing out that indication to the market that those speeds are needed here. For the 10% of subdivisions, however, that don't have adequate speeds, some tactical options need to be considered to fill those gaps. Now, really, when we're taking a look at the future and we're also taking a look at this from a competitive standpoint, many of the town of Stony Plain's neighboring communities and municipalities have access to symmetrical 1 gigabit per second speeds, and they're moving forward to that 2 gigabit per second symmetrical speed and service level as well. Really, this is going to be required by 2030. Really, this is the general trend and direction that most municipalities are going towards, and that should also be the town of Stony Plain's direction and North Star when you're looking at the next 10 years and what it is that you need. Really, again, it's going to be important to foster those relationships with current incumbents, with new partners that might be out there, to consider the options fully, and really to move forward and to grow Stony Plain from the 18,000 residents today to the 30,000 residents over the next decade, and to also make sure that the town is able to really adopt some of the new technology that we're going to see coming out that's going to require some of those higher speeds as well. So with that, I thank you for your time and for your attention. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you much for the presentation and definitely the update on the current state analysis of where Stony Plain is. I think we've heard over quite a few years that having reliable internet access is a necessity now. It's not just a nice to have, it's actually part of doing business and part of actually being connected into our daily lives and to our friends and families. Actually, I'm kind of interested in definitely in the presentation when you said that the majority of people that subscribe to internet services within town Stony Plain are somewhat satisfied or happy with their service provider, but yet also that many of them do not subscribe to the highest speed possible. So in terms of the survey, was it just because they're happy with what they have, they don't need anywhere higher speed?
Difficult for us to tell from the survey questions and the results that we had there. Yes, it's hard to say. In some cases, the 1 gigabit, or sorry, 1 gigabit per second up, 100 down is more than enough for most folks. Depends on what you're doing. Now, if we're talking about competitive gaming, you need the highest levels of service available. If we're talking about Zoom calls all day, you likely don't need to subscribe to those service levels. So it really depends on where your needs are as well. So citizens might have what they need at the moment. The other important part to note in that survey is that we had 49 results for all of Stony Plain, which is not quite significant, statistically speaking. So we do have to take that into consideration, that that was also there as well. But very, very difficult for us to tell why it was that they didn't subscribe to higher speeds. Just we can see from the results they haven't.
Okay, thank you. Members of council, any questions for clear understanding on the presentation? Councillor Hansard, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question and comment. You mentioned at least 3 times tonight that the residents in some areas overall have not subscribed to the highest level of service that they can. And you infer, and came right out and said at the end, in a way that I think is very clear, that unless the residents are telling Shaw and TELUS that they want pure fiber, the fiber optics, by subscribing to the highest speed they can now get, then it isn't going to assure Shaw and TELUS that it's worth the investment to press forward. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, that's the inference. As businesses, they're going to go to where the demand is the highest, and so that's our inference is they'll go where the demand is.
Okay, so they started a project here in Stony, and we're on a little bit of a pause trying to work things out so we can move forward. So right now, we should be embarking on some kind of a campaign, formal or informal, to get people to understand that there's probably better service available to them right now if they will subscribe to it and get the better speed. By doing so, that tells the providers, we want pure fiber, which is, if we're going to move our society forward, if people are going to continue to take courses and be in meetings online, they need to have the better service. And to get that assures that our business community and all of our residents, including Rosenthal Estates, the North Business Park, which are crucial, and the others that you mentioned that were in red, need to indicate to Shaw and Cable, please put fiber optics in our town as soon as possible. So am I missing anything that would make that message clearer? And is there a tool available that allows people to find out how to get that speed? I took the test 3 times myself, but I found there's not really a measurement tool. I don't know what the numbers mean. One time it was appallingly low. Another time it was higher. And I still, to this day, if I go in there and take that test 10 times this week, I don't know what it means. But I have upped my service, and I will be, I've got other things, my new PVR boxes, and I'm going to be changing to that as soon as my new television arrives. But I will, in every way that I can personally, let Sean tell us, no, we want better service. And is that what people should be doing?
Yes, I think what citizens need to do is subscribe to the highest level that they require, first of all, and that they should be looking to do that. It's a signal to the market that demand is in a certain area, and it might make some folks switch providers depending on the service levels in their area. Again, another market indicator for those incumbents as well. So it's a way for citizens and residents and businesses to influence, and citizens and businesses can also directly call any of those providers and put in requests for themselves as well. Again, just with the thinking that a business will generally go to where demand is definitely going to be there. And then as far as the speed test results and what you experienced, kind of seeing those fluctuations, that was to be expected. There's a number of factors that influence those speed test results, including whether or not you're on your home's Wi-Fi or whether or not you've connected into your home's network through a wired connection, where you are in your house and how far away you are from your Wi-Fi router, the time of day that you're actually doing the test, because that's traffic is a huge reason that you don't always get the speeds that service providers say that you can get up to. You might get it up to that speed if everybody's asleep late at night, something like that. But there's a number of factors in how you see some of those fluctuations there as well. But yes, generally the way that citizens and businesses have a way to influence these providers is to show them that there is demand. And that's how that can be done.
Just one question further. I just want to be real clear. Do you have a suggestion on where we go to get something that tells us what those numbers mean when we do the speed tests? I don't have a direct link, but I could find you one definitely. From my knowledge, I believe there is some definitions available on the Sierra Speed Test website as well, but I can definitely get that for you as well. Yeah. If you'll provide that to the town, I would really appreciate it.
No problem.
And that's good. And so just for Councilor Hansard, the easiest way to look at when you do a speed test, the first number is how much you're downloading. The larger the number, the faster it is. And the second number is how much it's going back up to the internet. And again, the larger the number, the faster it is.
Okay, so if they're both really low, I'm dead.
It's both. If they're both really, really low, then yes, you are. Well, I wouldn't say dead. It's just that you have lower service. Yeah. So the larger the numbers, the better it is, Councillor Hansard. Members of Council, any other questions for clarity and understanding? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to ask you to turn to page 30 of our package, which has the figure for the cellular towers in Stony Plain region. I'm not too sure if you have that on your slides or not.
I don't believe it's on the slides.
Now, that's one of the questions that I've received from, not only just residents, but also business owners, that the lack of bars in terms of cell service, drop calls on Main Street and industrial area. I'm looking at that map, I'm not too sure if I read it right. It's supposed to be where the cellular towers are in the Stony Plain region, and I don't see any towers in actual Stony Plain proper. Is that correct?
I'll have to double.
So that's on
check
page
that.
30 of 193 for
Right.
members of council that are following along.
Yeah. Generally, these towers and what we look at, and the reason that you have that circle surrounding Stony Plain is that these towers should have the ability to provide adequate services to those in the larger area there. I believe it's a 15-kilometer square radius around the town in which those should be effective.
Okay, but there's no towers within actually Stony Plain proper itself.
Yes, from what we've seen, yes.
Okay. And then that probably has affects the service level in terms of cell phone receptions within our community.
Definitely, it can. The better line of sight that you generally have, the better your services are going to be.
Okay. Any other questions for clarity and understanding? Okay. And then, so I'll just continue with that line of questioning, because I think on one of the slides, there's a slide between LTE, 5G, that's I think the number of towers there so that you can bounce off and have better reception. So I did a speed test last night when I was going over my notes. When I turn my phone to LTE, my download speed is 1.77 and my upload speed is 0.61 from where I live. So
Megabits per second.
yes,
Well,
very, very miserable. If I turn it to a 5G, I get 3.84% download and 1.94 for upload. So that's why I asked that question, because I have received many, comments about dropping cell phones and reception. So as a municipality, that's not our infrastructure, but how do we lobby the cellular providers to put more towers up?
yeah, it's a great question. I would honestly have to go back to Craig from Taylor Warwick to get a detailed answer on that. So I can definitely take that back and ask my teammates, and Craig being the subject matter expert in the space, I can definitely get that back to the town.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, no more hands up, so I'll ask another question. In terms of your report, you mentioned something regarding the SuperNet, which again is a fiber line that was laid by the provincial government a long time ago, and I believe Bell has control of it right now, based on what I've understood. Now here we are, we're having private companies and even municipalities laying their own fiber so that we can have better access. But we also know that the SuperNet is lying there dark, dormant. It's very, the percentage of use is very little. So instead of us reinventing the wheel and raising taxes and doing everything else to lay more fiber and having the companies do that too, why don't we just advocate for access, open access on the SuperNet?
Yeah, it's a good question. Traditionally, the access to SuperNet has been cost prohibitive to most. Craig, again, from Taylor Warwick Consulting, had reached out to them for this, just for some understanding. Again, we didn't get much back, but traditionally it's been cost prohibitive from what we've seen, and there's still trenching costs from the point of presence to whichever building that you need connectivity to as well. So those costs do end up being incurred regardless, and other incumbents will have similar points of presence within the town as well that can be utilized. So it's definitely another option that's out there. Traditionally, we've seen it as something that's been cost prohibitive, and why municipalities don't choose that option.
See no more hands up. I'll ask another question then. In terms of talking about cellular towers again, I know one of the issues that I've kind of run into is called spectrum loading. So spectrums get auctioned off by the provincial government. One provider buys a boatload of spectrum, but only utilizes one or two of them so that they have the market share of this whole region, which then causes poor service levels. There's no mention about how we can actually improve that access so that if a provider buys 100 bandwidths and they're not using it within 5 years, well, that needs to be turned back over to the market so that we can actually have more bandwidth and therefore increasing the competitiveness and then the service levels in all our communities, not just Stony Plain.
Definitely. I personally can't comment too much on the spectrum auctions and what have you. Craig is really our expert in the space when it comes to looking at that. We didn't delve into cellular networks in detail within the plan here as well. We're looking at that broadband network and considered cellular networks perhaps as something a bit secondary to that, unless we're looking at 5G deployments, which end up having speeds that are similar to some of the service levels that you can get from fiber and what have you. In general, I think that's a larger question about competition that we have in the space, in the broadband space, in this space of spectrums and service levels. What we see in Canada largely is that there is facilities-based competition. Essentially, incumbents don't have to make their infrastructure open to anybody else other than themselves. And that's the reason we have some of the highest data rates in the world. It is something that every municipality should be advocating to have changed, definitely. It was previously provided by us in the EMRB broadband situation analysis to do the same thing, that the region should get together and really be advocating to change the way that really is at a federal level. It is just why we see it's why we see citizens not satisfied with the value that they're getting out of their services. It's a factor of how the market is a factor of what the market is here in Canada.
Thank you. And then on behalf of council, just definitely thank you for the report and then providing those 5 options for council to consider. As you mentioned, this is a current state analysis of, and then taking a look at the market, and then going forward to future-proofing our community as we continue to grow from our current population of just under 19,000 to the next century where we're at 30,000. So that does give us some thought process to look at and some guidelines that we can review, and some things are a little easier for us to do as a municipality and some things are a little bit harder, but that's something that we as a council will talk about through our strategic planning and what kind of service levels we want to make sure that our residents do have in our region. So,
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, councillors.
Administration, anything else to add? Councilor Hansard, you okay? Okay, so that was a great presentation. A lot of information for council and our residents to kind of digest to see what's out there. And I think the presenter kind of hit it right on the mark after Councillor Hansard asked the question, is that is to make sure that our residents are aware of what service levels there are, what speeds there are, but that they subscribe to what they need. Like not to max out your speed just because it's there, but subscribe to a level that you're required to operate your business, do your Zoom calls or stay connected with your families. And the consumers will drive the investment in our communities. Moving on to number 5 of the agenda is the adoption of council minutes. So the GMP of December 5th, or December 6th. Oh. Was it sure it's a 6th? Because I have a 5th when I read. Okay, so I was correct. So it is December 5th. So please, as a council member that's being read, please change that. Councillor Meyer, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. That the December 5th, 2022 Governance and Priorities Committee meeting minutes be accepted as presented.
Thank you. Members of council, any questions and comments regarding those minutes? We kind of read them. Any errors, omissions? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just wondering if we had an update from the BMX Association when they were going to come back to council, as they were not able to attend that time.
Okay. I believe, do you want me to answer that?
Your Worship, I can check into it. I don't know that there has been a date chosen. But if I recall, after that meeting, we did reach out. It was just a mix-up of timing, and they do intend and they do want to come to a council meeting. So we'll check into that and get them scheduled in.
Okay, I was going to provide the update because I was actually in the office when it was done. Again, there was a couple changes in the executive membership of the BMX Association. Some lines got crossed. They have picked up their certificates, so I'm not too sure if they will be coming to council this time around, but hopefully next time around we'll get all the I's dotted and T's crossed so that they're here for the presentation.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for clarity, understanding? Just one question for administration. We're accepting the government's priorities for December 5th. So that's 2 months ago. Typically, we adopt meeting minutes the next meeting after, or usually shortly after that. So explanation why we're doing this 2 months late?
Thank you, Your Worship, through to the rest of Council. As you know, in November, Council passed a procedural bylaw. Administration is working to always update and streamline our legislative processes. In the procedural bylaw, Council passed, it created this meeting, the Governance and Priorities Committee meeting, as a committee meeting of Council. So because this is a standalone committee, not a Council meeting, this committee will now, as per proper procedure, pass their own committee meeting minutes.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate that. And actually, I'm surprised that I wasn't asked earlier because it is 2 months out of the equation. So thank you. Any other questions for clarity and understanding? See none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and that is carried. Okay, moving on to number 6 of our agenda is the business items. So number 6 is 6.1, the 2022 Development Activity Report. Go ahead, administration.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very excited to present 2 items tonight. There's a development activity report and environmental portfolio updates for council. Both these reports provide very good insight into the progress in the town is making in its growth and its environmental initiatives. We have the town's sustainability planner, Chelsea Rudolph, here to provide an update for both files. I'll now pass it to our sustainability planner for her presentations.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm presenting the 2022 Development Activity Report for information. Through this presentation, I will discuss the purpose of the annual Development Activity Report, summarize planning and development statistics for 2022, and review the next steps. The Development Activity Report presents an overview of development activity in 2022 to monitor community growth and present updates of development activity to council and stakeholders, to display information in new ways featuring graphs, tables, and maps, and offer a wide range of content and statistics. First, I will start with land development inquiries. Originally called pre-applications, this process was established in 2020 to help streamline inquiries related to planning, development, and engineering. After implementing this process over the last 2 years, administration restructured it to a 3-tiered system to better cater to the needs of the public. This gives community members the opportunity to submit a general question, request a meeting with staff, or submit materials for a specific project or application for staff to review. The town received 67 land development inquiries in 2022, which was an 81% increase from 2021. Inquiries received by type include 44 general questions, which typically come from landowners and residents, 2 meeting requests, and 21 applications or projects, which typically come from the development community or their consultants. Next are subdivisions and development agreements. The town gave 7 conditional subdivision approvals in 2022, which was a 17% increase from 2021. The town entered 2 development agreements in 2022, which was a 67% decrease from 2021. and the town endorsed 4 subdivision applications, which was a 60% decrease from 2021, noting that 2021 was a record high for number of endorsements processed. You can see from the map on the right-hand side of the screen that the majority of subdivision and development agreement activity took place in the North Industrial Park and the North Business Park, with some in the South Business Park, Silverstone, Fairways North, the Brickyard, and one on the far west side of the town. The town issued a total of 363 development and building permits in 2022, which was a 13% decrease from 2021. This includes 115 permits for new residential dwelling units, which was a 4.5% increase from 2021. The most permit activity occurred in Sun Meadows, with 4 single-detached dwelling units and 36 high-density dwelling units, accounting for 33% of new construction permits issued, followed by Genesis on the Lakes, where 7 detached dwelling units and 10 medium-density dwelling units accounted for 14% of new construction permits issued. Please note that this excludes 2 parks permits and 1 other permit, as those are not tracked by neighborhood. Reviewing new construction permits versus improvements, there were 124 permits issued for new construction in 2022, including the 2 parks permits and the 1 other permit, which was a 9% increase from 2021. There were 154 permits issued for improvements, which was a 25% decrease from 2021. The town issued 854 gas, plumbing, electrical, and private sewage disposal system permits in 2022, which was a 19% decrease from 2021. Looking at a finer level of detail, there were 286 gas permits issued, which was a 19% decrease from 2021, 152 plumbing permits issued, a 17% decrease from 2021, and 415 electrical permits issued, a 20% decrease from 2021. There was no change in the number of permits for private sewage disposal systems. The total value of all permits issued in 2022 was approximately $53 million, which was a 13% decrease from 2021. Overall, there was a general decrease in development activity in 2022, except for land development inquiries, conditional subdivision approvals, and new housing starts. This overall decrease in permit activity was inconsistent with provincial statistics, which showed a 5.8% increase in the number of building permits issued across the province, but was generally consistent with national statistics, which showed a 6.3% decrease in the number of building permits issued across the country. The town's slight increase in housing starts was inconsistent with both provincial and federal statistics, which experienced a 25.2% decrease in housing starts across the province and a 15% decrease in housing starts across the country. In regard to next steps, administration anticipates that council will accept the annual development activity report for information to enable continued monitoring, tracking, and reporting. This concludes administration's presentation.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Again, very informative, and it's good to see the work that's happened over the last year. Members of council, any questions for clarity and understanding? Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just a really quick one. In terms of this last point, increase in housing starts, inconsistent with provincial and national statistics. Am I reading the provincial statistics were down 25% and 15% respectively? That's, and not our numbers, like in comparison.
Through your worship to Councillor Myers, yes, that's correct. So the 25 is for the province and the 15 is for the country.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hansard.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to planning. I'm just curious, during our strategic planning sessions, we use the number for population 18,000 plus. I don't remember the exact number. But a whole lot of our strategic planning this year was based on that number and why we project to be at 30,000 in a reasonably short period of time, of just a few years. What I'm curious about is on page 110 of 193 is a chart that talks about population of Stony Plain from 1989 to 2021. Were these all federal census numbers? And are we not at a timing for a federal census that would give us a more recent number showing that 18,000 plus population number? And I guess that's tied to the second question. If you go to page, a few pages later, a similar chart grabs the year 2022. And I'm just wondering why we lop off that extra year that might get us to where we're looking at the number that we've used in strategic planning. I don't think that was a made-up number. I'm pretty sure we've got something. So was that the 18,000, was that a municipal census versus a Canadian statistics census?
Your worship, I'll maybe just speak to maybe the first question, and staff, if they want to check into that second part of the question. But the chart on page, I believe it's 110 of the package that council has, with the exception of, I'm not sure about 1989, I believe the rest of those are federal census years, again, with the exception of 2019, which I believe was a municipal census. And just a little bit further along that, the next federal census would be for 2026 numbers, I believe. So you won't see a federal census taking place within Canada until I think they actually will do it in 2025 and report it the year after, but 2026 would be the next federal census. And I'm not sure if there's anything that staff want to add about the last half of the question regarding 2022 or?
Thank you, Town Manager. Through your worship to Councillor Hansard. Just to clarify, I think you're referring to the table on page 111 where it ends at 2021 for 1989. Is that correct? And you're asking, and the question is why we don't include 2022 numbers. It's in line with the federal census that the Town Manager has outlined just now.
So that one chart, if I may, Mr. Mayor, that one chart is federal census. We don't know where 1989's number comes from. But on the other page is 116 of 193, where 2022 was grabbed for permitted dwelling units. I suppose that's a specific town-specific stat that was able to be pulled out of our own records. But is there any way that this information can include the 18,000 plus population number, or will we just have to sit and grind our teeth waiting on that number to show up somewhere officially?
Yeah, so Councillor Hansard, so the census was done in 2021, and the numbers and population was released mid-year of 2022. So the numbers there are the most recent ones. The 18,000 plus is based on what our staff has deemed new building starts, new housing starts, and you average, 2.25 people per house unit. That's where you get it. So it's not an official number, and it will never be an official number until the next census happens in 2026, which we will not get the numbers until 2027.
Okay, so just for clarification on that, Mr. Mayor, we don't normally use our municipal census numbers then. We're only going to go, for these kinds of purposes, we're only going to be able to use StatsCan numbers?
So in the past, the municipalities have done their own municipal census. We have tended not to do that anymore in the future going forward because with the municipal census, as a municipality, we cannot compel a resident to fill out the status forms. However, the federal government can compel you to do that. It's actually an offense not to fill your census. So therefore, the federal census are more accurate and more detailed than what we can get for ourselves. A lot of the funding that we as a municipality use and apply for is usually based on the federal census numbers. So it's not, they do not use any municipal census numbers because, again, the possibility of being inaccurate, whereas the federal census is more accurate.
Okay.
Is that everything, Councillor Hansard?
No, that's good, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Laurie, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much for the presentation this evening. Just referring to the chart on page 131 in regards to the gas, plumbing, electrical, and private sewage disposal system permit volume. Just a question in regards to this. We see the permit reduction from the previous year. We also are aware that there is a little bit of a challenge in the economic times, and unfortunately, it is a reality that sometimes people don't necessarily pull permits. Do we have any way, shape, or form of capturing or analyzing what we anticipate the potential non-permitted work that's being completed is? Like, do we carry year-over-year statistics? Obviously, you know, when somebody goes to sell their house or something like that, it may be discovered that unpermitted work was done. Do we capture those statistics anywhere to show that, you know, this percentage of our permits from this year were you know, previously unpermitted work that was discovered? Do we have any idea of that type of data?
Okay, good question.
Your Worship, through the Councillor Laurie, thank you for the question. Specifically on unpermitted work, we can only rely on what gets reported back, if at all. So the general answer is no, or very infrequent if we would get any indication from sales from realtors or private citizens or otherwise. There can be implications from self-reporting on those things. I mean, certainly if we do, then we would likely log those things, but they're very rare and infrequent that or if at all, that we would ever see those.
Touch on that one too. So I know over different points in time, we will pick one up from a house sale, or you know, someone literally goes to sell their house. They got to get some inspections done, and if we find out, or they find out, that they have a deck that was never permitted, that I don't know how common it is, but I know I've seen that one happen. Essentially, they are required to get a permit, so that it does get picked up as a permit in those instances, but it would just show up on the stats as a permit.
Thank you, and that's, I guess, kind of the basis of my question there is, you know, those wouldn't get captured until such a time as there was that event. Whether that work was done 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you know, that doesn't get discovered until that actual event. And so I'm just kind of curious, you know, if that is data worth capturing to understand how many of these come in, to understand how much unpermitted work actually exists, and to see if that follows any type of trend. You know, I know some work gets done unpermitted because people just simply aren't aware of the process. It's a very small project, they don't believe that they need one, they just do it the way they go, versus other ones where it's very large, maybe it's not a professional contractor, it's maybe a home DIY, that type of thing, and they've just done it. So, you know, again, I'm not looking for, you know, super scientific answers tonight or anything like that, but might just be some interesting information to see as these reports come forward in the future.
Okay. Thank you for that commentary, Councillor Laurie. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Hansard.
If I may, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Laurie. As a realtor, I can tell you there's a large number of basements that have been finished in homes that there were no permits pulled. That isn't just development permit, sometimes that's gas, electric, plumbing. I find it a lot when I'm bringing buyers to property, because I always encourage buyers to find out if everything was permitted. They have to come to the town to find out, because quite often it's not forthcoming from the seller. And in my career, 20 years, I have found lots of it in every municipality that I've sold in. And there's a fair number of them here in Stony Plain, to be sure.
Can I add to that?
So that means we're missing out on fair assessment of those properties and subsequent tax dollars, so that people, everybody, is paying their fair share of taxes.
Yes, and I think just a good point there, because I think the commentary around here is looking at the compliance letter. So I think once somebody tries to sell a house, they need a compliance letter. That's when the town actually goes and then reviews it, and if something has not been permitted, then again, that needs to be rectified before a compliance letter is sent. In terms of fair tax values, I would argue that we may not know, but as we know, taxes are based on a evaluation of over a year period, over like a group of buildings, so it's averaged in and out, and it's based on sales of the property, not, what's upgraded, because we can't tell. I think you mentioned a really good point there. We can't tell what's upgraded, and that's why evaluations and market assessments are done by the assessor, and it's for a group or a basket of houses within a certain time frame. It's usually June 1st till May 31st of the preceding year. So they take all those data from sales of that previous year to get your house value. So if they sold within that time frame, I think then that's when you kind of recapture the market value. Councillor Laurie?
Thank you, Your Worship. And actually, I'm just going to maybe seek some clarification from administration on that, because my interpretation and understanding of assessed value is it is an external assessment and the assessed value of what is known within that property. So if a property was developed and it had an unfinished basement, that is the information that we're going to have on file for the assessment. Whereas if somebody does not pull a permit and finishes their basement, that house would actually assess higher had that permit had been pulled, knowing the value of that work. Is that not correct?
Your Worship, certainly through to all of council, I would say generally, yes, that's correct. But frankly, I would caution against getting into the nitty-gritty of assessment here in the chambers, because I, for one, will be very honest and tell you I don't understand it specifically. So,
thank you. And it just goes to follow up on part of why my question was raised, understanding what potential there is within our municipality of unpermitted work. And how does that impact us? How does that impact us from a safety standpoint? How does that impact us from an assessment standpoint, et cetera? So again, maybe something to consider for future reports.
Thank you. Any other questions for clarity and understanding? Okay. I'm just going to piggyback onto what Councilor Laurie had. You guys had turned to page 131. So just in terms of a question for administration, quite a few years ago, we went out to tender for the service contracting of the inspections for gas, plumbing, et cetera. Can we provide an update? I know maybe this is not the right time, but the permits are here. And I think that was about 3 years ago that we did that. So I have not received an update. So how's it going with the new contractor and provider?
Your Worship, thank you for the question. The town has utilized a contract extension mechanism within the contract with the service provider that we have right now for, I can't recall the exact amount of time. It's at least the next year. I could circle back with council with the exact extension time, but we did extend the gas, the inspections group contract forward.
Okay, thank you. And then on page 131, looking at the value of permits issued, definitely there's a huge spike in 2021. So for my reference, talking about assessment value, then does that mean that the town increased by $60 million in assessment value so that we can tax all $60 million of that?
Your Worship, pardon me. Again, thank you for the question. Just to address I believe you're talking about the values of permits issued on page 13 of the report. First of all, it's normal to see undulations throughout the growth of any community. That's quite to be expected. Within the value that you ask, these are the value of the permits that were built. So this reflects the construction costs that we get from the builders themselves. This can range from smaller units to larger commercial dwellings, to provincial buildings, town buildings, what have you in that year. And it is a reflection of the costs. Now, it doesn't necessarily directly translate into assessment over time. So as council is likely aware, there are certain buildings that go up that don't pay taxes or assessments, such as schools. Whereas there are other buildings like residential and commercial buildings that they will go up in their assessment, they will go have a construction cost, and their assessment values may be different from the construction costs themselves. They may fluctuate over time depending on their assessment. And as the town manager alluded to, I'm not nearly as well educated to determine the assessment stuff, the assessment costs over time. So I would leave that to much smarter people than me over time. But that's a general assessment of the permit values.
Okay, so thank you for that clarity then. So in 2021, there was just over $60 million in permit value. So out of that, you mentioned that schools, government buildings, town facilities are not subject to the tax roll. So out of that $60+ million value, how much was not transferred over to the tax roll?
Your Worship, I would have to get an exact number from our finance group directly. There was, in 2021, we did have the French school come online, which was about approximately $2 million in permits, is one example.
No, that was 2022, not 2021. So 2022 would have been $2 million for the French school?
Yeah, if I can, Your Worship, I believe if I understand the line of questioning, so in 2021, that was the year the permit went through for Stony Central, which was give or take 18 or 19 million construction value. 2022, I think it was about 2 million for the Center Nord School. And maybe to go one more step further, Your Worship, on that, I mean, those would be essentially non-taxable assessment growth or permit values. So numbers are what they are, 60 million give or take in 2021, 53 in 2022. One of the things to be aware of in those numbers is the actual assessment values in 2022 will be higher than what was seen coming out of 2021.
Okay. Yes, I think that provides clarity because I think the mention was like roughly $19 million for the Stony Plain Central School in 2021. So if you subtract that off from the permit values, which leaves about $45 million, and then the 2022 permit values were 53, and you subtract $2 million for the starter school, the Francophone starter school, it leaves about 51 million. So if we just round down to 45 million to 50 million, that's actually an increase of $5 million in assessment value for the town of Stony Plain. So even though it looks like there's a decrease in the net permit issued, there was actually an increase in terms of accessible land that we had in the town of Stony Plain.
Yeah, generally correct, yeah.
So in other words, we're doing a good job. So thank you for that. Okay. Any other questions for clarity and understanding? Okay, I think that's all my questions. So thank you much for the presentation. Councilor Lowry with the motion, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that the 2022 Development Activity Report be accepted for information.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Lowry. Members of Council, any questions, comments, and debate on the motion to accept for information? See none, call a question, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, moving on to 6.2, which is the 2022 EPP update. Go ahead, administration.
Thanks, Your Worship. So I'm also presenting the 2022 Environmental Portfolio Progress Update for information. And through this presentation, I'll discuss the purpose of Stony Plain's environmental portfolio, provide rationale for and background information on the annual update, summarize achievements and changes to the environmental portfolio, and review the next steps. The environmental portfolio is a list of all environmental initiatives that occur in the town or plan to take place in the future. The Environmental Portfolio Progress Update presents a summary of work completed on these environmental initiatives, including their status, whether they're inactive, expected to commence, ongoing, or complete, achievements and outcomes of ongoing or complete initiatives, and additions to, moves within, or removals from the environmental portfolio. Rationale for this work stems from the 2022 to 2025 strategic plan, which includes an environmental vision to strive to protect, preserve, and enhance natural systems and environmentally significant areas while promoting a greener way of living. One key action from the environmental responsibility section of the plan states to implement and monitor the environmental master plan, which was completed in 2020 to outline environmental priorities. Looking at the hierarchy of environmental policy plans in Stony Plain, it starts with the strategic plan, as mentioned, followed by the municipal development plan, which is one of our townwide policy documents, the environmental master plan, which is specific to outline the environmental priorities, and finally, the environmental stewardship strategy, which contains specific goals and actions to achieve the environmental visions of the policy plans above it. As a reminder, initiatives within the environmental portfolio are categorized first by theme that are established within the environmental stewardship strategy, and again by expected timing of and responsibility for completion, including if they're ongoing, included within the action plan, are completed by external parties, or are beyond the action plan. So the first section of the environmental portfolio is the ongoing initiatives, which includes all initiatives that currently take place in the town. To summarize 2022 achievements, the town replaced 6 solar trail lights and 10 streetlights along Main Street that were converted and installed at Rotary Park. The town planted 16 trees at Campbell Park for Arbor Day and completed the first urban agriculture plan, which is expected to start being implemented in 2023. Community peace officers responded to 2 idling files, and Stony Plain Fire Department responded to 11 wildland fire files for fringe areas on agricultural properties. Rainwater collected at Heritage Park continues to be used to water flowers, and groundwater from dewatering wells is used to create skating rinks. The town achieved a 48% waste diversion rate with weekly collection and a 55% overall diversion rate, which includes both weekly collection and materials collected at the Rotary Recycling Center. Moving into the action plan, there were 2 initiatives added, one to Phase 2 and one to Phase 3. These include a small-scale urban gardening project and an initiative to implement energy-saving recommendations in municipal buildings. 2 initiatives were moved within the portfolio, which were both initially beyond the action plan, but were moved into phases 1 and 2 of the action plan with completion of the urban agriculture plan. These include exploring the feasibility of urban agriculture and exploring the feasibility of expanding the community garden program. 2 initiatives were removed from the environmental portfolio, one from ongoing initiatives and one from Phase 1 of the action plan. These include the community street market, which is no longer led by the town, and the clean energy improvement program, which was identified to be unfeasible at this time. Overall, the total number of initiatives within the environmental portfolio remains the same as the 2021 update, but their placement across categories within the portfolio has shifted. So overall, ongoing initiatives lost 1 initiative, Phase 1 of the action plan lost 1, but also gained another, so it remains even. Phase 2 of the action plan gained 2 initiatives, Phase 3 of the action plan gained 1 initiative, and beyond the action plan lost 2 initiatives, which were 2 that were moved into the action plan. And reporting on overall progress of the action plan specifically, at the end of 2022, there are 3 initiatives that are currently ongoing, which translates to 13% of the plan. These initiatives include exploring solar infrastructure in municipal buildings, which is being considered in the design of the new Public Works building, and the Parks and Open Space Guidelines and the Green Space Plan, which are expected to be completed in 2023. Additionally, 4 initiatives were completed in 2022, which translates to 17% of the action plan. And these initiatives include gathering energy consumption data for municipal buildings, exploring the feasibility of urban agriculture, creating an environmental webpage on the town website, and participating in the Municipal Energy Manager program. Thinking about next steps, administration anticipates that council will accept the environmental portfolio update for information, which would enable administration to continue implementing environmental initiatives and reporting on their progress on an annual basis. This concludes administration's presentation.
Thank you for the presentation. Again, it's nice to highlight some of the activities that we've done, completed, and continue to keep an eye on as we focus on the environmental master plan. Members of council, any questions for clarity and understanding? Councillor Meyer, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have 3 questions. I'll start with the first and easiest one. The community street market, its removal from the plan, I see is because of we're not the leads on that. I'm curious who is, so through you to administration, that would be my question, is who's the lead of the street market initiative?
Do you want me to do that? I can answer it. So ever since the community street market was moved back downtown, it was done as a loop around the town office and has been led by the one man's treasurer. So they do the sign up, the registration. They also do the markings and the blockings of the little stalls. And they have been doing that since we brought it back to the downtown in 2012.
And that's terrific. I can fully appreciate One Man's Treasure's efforts on this file. I'm curious, since it is a private business that's leading it, if removing it from the plan, even if it's just a placeholder, in the event that, you know, whatever, we lose a business or that business decides not to proceed doing it, how we would, since it is such a valued by the community, we would make sure that that program didn't get dropped.
That's good. Good question. So if, for example, One Man's Treasure does not want to take the lead on that anymore, how do we bring it back as a council initiative?
Your Worship, thank you for the question. I'd have to get back on the specifics to council on that one. If One Man's Treasure chose, or any entity that chose not to participate, it would be a dialogue with council to be sure about how we proceeded from there.
Okay, so just for clarity, what I'm hearing is in the event of something happening to One Man's Treasure's efforts, it would definitely come back before council in some manner for us to look at it.
That's right. And I think council can direct staff to make sure that that event continues to happen.
Okay, second question. Thank you. Sorry, turning to page 146 of 193, our external partners. I appreciate we have all these external partners. I'm just curious how they fit into this plan, what initiatives might be coming out of them, what efforts and time, staff commitment is to these external programs. And I guess it's more of a comment. I would just like to see that in the next report. I'm not sure if administration would be prepared to answer any of those details tonight.
Okay. Administration, anything to comment on that?
Through your worship, the councilor mayor, there are a number of different groups that are in this external list, and I don't have the exact time and levels of hours, but each staff commit. The town does have staff that participate in different roles in I believe most or if not all of these boards. I don't know the exact commitment. They're generally monthly, quarterly meetings and updates and contributions to their individual portfolios. I regret that I don't have the breakdown of each hours per month, but we do engage with these groups pretty regularly.
Okay, I thank administration for that answer. But further to my point, just understanding how these groups help shape our environmental portfolio would be appreciated information in future reports.
Okay. I appreciate that, and I thank you for bringing that up, Councillor Meyer. I think this ties into our strategic plan. A lot of the requests for decisions are tied back to our strategic plan. So I think Councillor Meyer is asking, if we're participating in these external processes, how does that tie into our corporate plan? How does it tie into our strategic plan? Because are we doing this because it's a one-off and it doesn't really tie into our community, or are we doing this because it's an extension of what we're trying to do in our corporate plan?
That's a good, accurate description of it.
Anything else?
Yeah, and finally, just if I can add a comment, reading through this evening, I was struck when reading some of these other plans, when it says words like beyond the plan. In my head, I automatically assume that that is something that we've looked at and determined that it's not within our purview, or it's not within our capabilities. But then, of course, in the update, we see some things move from beyond the plan to into the plan. And so just the comment there, maybe a bit of wordsmithing would be required to be a little bit more clear in what beyond the plan really entails. Maybe it should be, I can't think of words, but less so in that it's not part of the plan, it's just not currently.
Future consideration?
Yeah, something to that, yeah, future considerations. Because the way I originally read that, it sort of strikes me as we're not doing those things at all. Not that we're not doing them unless they present an opportunity kind of thing. So just a comment there.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. And I think with most plans that council is aware of, it's a living plan. The document continues to move, and then we adopt it and we change it every few years as we get things done. So I think maybe that's a good question to pose, is not beyond the plan, is future considerations. As we get a few of the initiatives completed and done, we move up the future considerations forward as we go down the line 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, what gets done, what brings and comes back up. I think good point. Any other comments, questions? Thank you. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I always love these ones. These are some of my favorite plans to come into chambers, and so excited to speak to it this evening. I have a couple of really quick questions, and then maybe some that require a little bit more commentary. But specific to Arbor Day, had the privilege with a number of councillors and admin staff and public works staff to participate. The one comment that stood out for me, though, was there was one particular tree that was more central to the field space. And I got pulled to the side and a lady said to me, "Why are they putting it there? That's where the kids always play." And so my question with that is, there consultation with the neighbors that live in these areas prior to determining where some of those trees are going to be planted?
Your worship, to Councillor Anderson, I'll maybe ask our sustainability planner to field that question for you.
To Councillor Anderson. In the past, no, there hasn't been specific consultation with the neighbors. Our current process is we consult our horticulture team, and they do a review of the site. Well, they help us select the site initially, and then once the site is selected, they go out and take a look at it and will propose locations and tree species and the size of the species that they feel are suitable for the chosen site for that year. So that's definitely something that we can incorporate into our process for future Arbor Day celebrations.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I think a big consideration is how our green space is utilized by the residents in the area, and so wanting to make sure that we take that into consideration. Great programs, but just wanting to make sure that they meet the needs of that area. Looking at, sorry, I'm going to try to go in page order here, page 154, just maybe more of a comment after last week, some of the dialogue around the land use bylaws coming forward, and the number of comments that we've received about the value that residents are placing on environmentally significant areas in our community. And so I see here that that's one of our, I think, phase 2 items currently inactive, but expected to commence this year. And so I think a lot of value will be brought forward through that item, and I think it certainly reflects the priorities of the residents that we're here to serve. So just, I guess, excited to see that one outlined there this evening. Another really quick, easy one, page 155, tree planting program for local groups. I'm assuming this extends beyond Arbor Day, as Arbor Day is listed as a separate item. But I've had several calls over the last year specific to the Umbach Dog Park. And I'm just curious, I know this is inactive, it's not been started, but if there's going to be an opportunity for residents to kind of participate in that decision where those trees are going to be planted, and if the dog park would be something that would be considered under that program.
Your worship, through Deputy Mayor, I'll ask our sustainability planner to answer that for you.
Through your worship to Councillor Anderson. Yeah, that's definitely something that we can consider at a time when that project takes place. It's something that we're hoping to do as part of our urban forest strategy to really understand what the urban forest looks like for the entire community. And so I think once we have kind of the foundation for that, that would help us inform what this tree planting program really looks like and kind of work with the community to help them develop how we might go about that and the frequency and the suitable locations. I know that there's lots of locations around the community where people would like to see some trees planted, so it would be awesome to get that one done sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely, and I appreciate that, and seeing how, you know, items, I guess, can be flexed and moved throughout the plan. Just wanted to bring that forward based on some of the feedback that I've received. Another one that stood out for me was page 156. You know, looking at the adopt a single-use plastic bylaw. Now, I understand, again, this is an external component here. There's some research being conducted by the provincial government, but I know that the federal government just passed through the single-use plastics prohibition regulations. I think those came into effect just before Christmas, somewhere around the 20th of December. And I'm just wondering, you know, if there is value in investing time and resources into a municipal bylaw when those things are already covered under federal regulations.
Through your worship to Deputy Mayor, I'll ask our sustainability planner to answer that one.
Through your worship to Councillor Anderson, thank you for the question and the comment. It's something that we need to consider. I think when the environmental master plan and the environmental stewardship strategy were initially done in 2020, there were lots of discussions about this work that, you know, that might happen at the federal level. And now we're seeing some implementation of those policies and regulations coming through. So I think the town will be watching over the next couple of years to see how these things get rolled out and what impacts they will have on our community. However, I wouldn't rule it out just yet because there's always opportunity for us to take that extra step and be a bit more regulatory at what's happening at our local level if we choose to do so. There's also the extended producer responsibility regulation that came out federally in October as well. But I know that there are these are being rolled out over the next several years. So yeah, we're curious to see what happens. We didn't want to remove it just yet. It might not go anywhere in the future, but there might still be a chance that we could do something with it. So we will review that definitely when we do our environmental progress update next year.
Perfect, and thank you for that, and thank you for taking the time to answer those questions. Just, you know, something I'm looking forward to as I kind of review here some of the things that are coming back into chambers this year, specific to parks and open spaces and our green space plan. So we appreciate all the work that you know, our teams are doing on this, and we look forward to seeing where it goes as the year carries on. So thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you for those questions and highlighting those couple of comments. And again, in terms of the local groups that plant trees within our community, we had a few of them already over the last few years. As members of council that were here 2 terms prior, we had the Junior Forest Wardens plant trees within the Willow Park Natural Area. And also there was a group of residents that back onto Willow Park as well that came to town, and they also planted a bunch of trees around there with the assistance of our staff. So I would actually say that it's maybe inactive, but it is also already happening. So maybe we can get that cleared up in the commentary that it does happen, and we should continue to do that. Councillor Laurie, you're next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and actually I'll start just piggybacking off of that tree planting program as well on page 155. We do have a great opportunity that's existed for many years that brought up before, but we don't really seem to do anything about, where every single grade 1 student in the town of Stony Plain receives a seedling in May of every year. We have a fantastic opportunity to provide areas within the town to plant these and designate these areas and distribute that information through both the Wildfire Management Branch, who provides the seedlings, and through Parkland School Division, Evergreen Catholic School Division, and the other school divisions that participate. I'm just curious, it seems like such a simple initiative. determine that there is an area of town that if people don't want to plant this tree in their yard, live in a multi-unit building, that they don't have that land available. It seems so simplistic for us just to be able to identify an area, provide some simplistic guidelines. Is there a reason why we don't have something like that in existence?
Through your worship to Councillor Laurie, I'll start to answer here and ask if our sustainability planner has anything to add. Generally speaking, these plans are made with considerations of a number of different things, including the ability to complete the initiatives as spoken, and there are some in here that are active and inactive, as you've noted. There is staff time even for the most, I guess, low-hanging fruit options to the more complicated ones, and these plans are always made in consideration of the plan's desire to make and complete council's desires, as well as what we're seeing internally and what we can accomplish as well. So to your the short answer here is it's something that we can take that comment back and see if there's something that we can do very, very simply, as you pointed out, for these seedlings. But the inactive and active states also show just what we can and can't accomplish internally.
Thank you. And I do have some information. We made contact with them at the Alberta Municipalities Conference for some of the facilitators of that program, so I'm more than happy to share that. The City of Edmonton has a great framework that they've done, and to my understanding, it's an identified area, there's a fact sheet, and it's done. So when I look at an action like in Phase 4, the Willow Park Natural Area revegetation, if there's an area of Willow Park that we feel that this tree species would be suitable, to hand out a small pamphlet with a map that shows that area, maybe mark that area with a simplistic signage or something like that, I think would be a great opportunity for us to utilize an existing program that doesn't cost us any money to get those trees, quite frankly. So that's great. I appreciate that, and I'll share that information. The other question I have, 149 is the page number, and it refers to the safe hydrant flushing and the dechlorination of the hydrant flushing, which is something I wasn't aware we were doing. That's actually a really neat thing we do, and obviously that hydrant flushing flows directly into our storm drains, and so that's to protect and improve the stormwater quality. But what I'm aware of as well is that we do a significant amount of training, or emergency services do a significant amount of training in where they are using the hydrant system and they're using that chlorinated water during their training. And during that training, they're putting up to thousands of liters per minute back into the storm system by flowing the various apparatuses, hose lines, et cetera, that they do. Since we don't have a dedicated training facility with the technology that captures that runoff water, treats it before releasing it into there, is there any alternative? Is there anything that we can be doing on that aspect? Because if we're going to dechlorinate that water just from flushing the hydrants, I think it's worthwhile that we would look on what's likely a higher volume aspect is the amount of that water that gets used during emergency services training.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Laurie, certainly we can look at that. I know the department does go over to the City of Spruce Grove training facility. I'm not aware of if they've got provisions in place for runoff water. That would be something we'd have to check back into and see. So I'm not sure about the specifications of their particular training unit. You are correct. There are some times where they do flow on the ladder, as an example, during the week as part of their normal course of action. So there is some water flow that happens there for sure. So certainly this is something that we can investigate to see if it makes some sense.
Thank you. And yeah, I'm hopeful that if we are already instituting something on the hydrant flushing, maybe there's some type of a workaround that we can incorporate into that. That, as you said, the ladder truck is probably one of the most, I think it flows up to 6,000 liters per minute. So when they are training with that piece of apparatus, that's a lot of water that would be going back into the system. So if we can find a way to mitigate that, I think that'd be fantastic.
Anything else, Councillor Laurie?
That's all for me. Thank you.
Councillor Hansard?
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I just want to make note that it did not fall on blind eyes when I read the little part about pitch-in, drew out 1,132 volunteers. I was so impressed with that. Wouldn't it be great if we could even beat that this year? I've participated in pitch-in. I don't recall anywhere near those numbers coming out before. So that's really great to see, and just shows again that town of Stony Plain has a tremendous volunteer force. Must have been beautiful weather that day for people to get out and enjoy it. The one thing that struck me is a report on page 166 of 193, where we're told that the diversion rate was 48% waste, diverting waste from our landfill. And I'm thinking that in years past it was greater than that. I'm just wondering if this is an indication in administration's viewpoint that we need to relaunch an educational program again, perhaps with school children like we did before, where the kids actually got good information at school and then went home and taught it to their families. And I was told by a number of parents in the early days of our waste diversion programs that the kids were adamant. They would not leave their parents and siblings alone about putting things in the wrong receptacles and so forth. Do we have a goal on where we want that to be? I see that it says 55%, but somehow it seems to me that's very low compared to what we used to do. Could you enlighten me on that, please?
Your worship, to the council answered. With respect to the waste diversion rate, so there's more information that will be coming to council on specifically on the waste diversion rate, as well as some other waste statistics coming to council in this quarter. With respect to the overall goals and diversion rates, I'd have to check back. On page 149 of your of the package, it does stipulate a goal of 70%.
%48.3%, is that what you're talking about? Oh, 70%. So that's our goal. That would be great. That's a big jump from 48% to 70%.
Through your worship to Councillor Hansard, as you brought up, there are education tools at our disposal that we would look to leverage and continue to work with the community to try and improve those numbers. We would always appreciate more over time. It's important that we keep a finger on the pulse and make sure that we're being mindful of what the actual numbers are and how we can help the town's overall waste diversion rate improve with the help of our residents.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Seeing none, just a quick question here. I think a couple weeks ago we attended strat planning in Sylvan Lake, and a couple of my ride chauffeurs drove through the city of Leduc, and they had these no mow signs in terms of areas that will no longer be mowed in terms of environmental stewardship, allowing to naturally grow, allowing to collect rainwater so it helps also prevent flooding. Is there a consideration as a community to do some of those areas as well in our community as we continue to evolve and mature our environmental program?
Your worship, thank you for the question. The town does have a number of naturalized areas that we don't mow, and that was already identified in our naturalization report. But in terms of no mow signs, I guess I'd have to follow up and see if that's something that our operations group implements across town. I know there are some signs that indicate when you enter a naturalized area. Particularly one that comes to mind is it's just along Whispering Waters Creek. However, if there's any other specific no-cut signs specific to that, I'd have to follow up on that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So thank you, and I appreciate the questions. So Council answered from my recent memory, I think a few years ago we achieved a 60% diversion rate from our waste. That has slid a little bit because of the recycling changes overall. So a lot of the stuff that was acceptable, maybe even 5 years ago when you were in council previously, are no longer acceptable now in the blue bag. So therefore, you're absolutely, we might have to revisit that number, or how do we get to that number without having those plastics and hard steel glass that was accepted before, but which are not accepted now in the blue bag program. Therefore, that also changes the diversion rate, so something that we need to definitely keep an eye on as a council. Any other questions? No? Thank you very much for the presentation and answering the questions. Councillor Loynes, 6.2, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Town Council accept the 2022 environmental portfolio process update be accepted for information.
Okay. Members of council, any questions and comments regarding the motion to accept for information? See none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. You know what, before we go to 6.3, let's call a recess and we'll re-adjourn at 7 p.m. 10 minutes. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Returning back to our agenda, number 6.3, which is the strategic and corporate plan update for Q4. Go ahead, administration.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. Provided for your review and consideration is a report reflecting on the strategic and corporate plan progress of key initiatives for the fourth quarter in 2022. The details of the progress report are included in the agenda package beginning on page 175, and I would like to highlight specific items that have demonstrated advancement in support of both the strategic and corporate plans. Beginning on page 176, progress on our commitment to governance and partners was made in Q4 with the annual member appointment to council committees and boards, advocacy dialogue with the provincial government during the Alberta Municipalities Conference, implementation regarding the tri-municipal regional plan to further Indigenous relationship building, approval of the 2023 to 2025 corporate plan, and public engagement for the Significant Names Registry, Broadband Strategy, Highway Development Strategy, and Together We Shine Inclusion Strategy that were all conducted in the latter part of 2022. Moving to page 178 of the agenda package, progress on our commitment to economic opportunities was made in Q4 with profiling local business achievement of the North Central Co-op as the recipient of the 2022 Ambassador of Action Business Award, and collaboration with local businesses to launch our annual holiday season tourism marketing Shop the Season campaign. The Q4 progress for supportive infrastructure is outlined beginning on page 179, with a highlight to the 2023 capital plan and infrastructure projects that were presented and approved as part of the corporate plan. Under the community development section, beginning on page 181, the following progress is noted during the last quarter of 2022. The Stony Plain Cultural Ambassador, Greg Hanna, was presented with the Award for Creative Excellence Award. The annual Christmas ornament was created by local artist Susan Swan and distributed in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. Our two major seasonal events were hosted, both Winter Light Up and Family Fest. Stony Plain recognized the International Day of Persons with Disabilities with a special event. The Dementia Connections Progress Report and Evaluation and Engagement Plan was launched. The Stone Soup Poverty Eradication event was held, and 5 area residents were awarded with the Queen Elizabeth II Platinum Jubilee Medal for their volunteer contributions. Finally, on page 183 of the agenda package, the report highlights the progress in the environmental responsibilities with the completion of the Urban Agricultural Master Plan in Q4 2022. Those are my comments regarding the report, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions of council at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. Members of council, any questions for clarity and understanding? Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 questions this evening. The first looking at page 177 of our agenda package. The point here, engaging our public with opportunities. Administration highlighted this in terms of some of the engagement that was done. My question specific to 3 items here, the Significant Names Registry, the Broadband Strategy, and the Together We Shine Strategy. Earlier this evening, during the broadband presentation, the comment was made that the public response was not statistically relevant, I believe were the words that were used, or something to that effect, in terms of just the overall numbers being quite low in terms of the response to that particular survey. And so just looking for some commentary on the engagement process, how it was advertised, how these how this engagement was conducted, and the response rate from the community on the other 2 items there.
Certainly, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Anderson and all of Council, I'll provide some additional opening commentary, and then I'll maybe look to my colleagues to provide some additional input with regards to their specific public engagement projects. So I'll just begin by saying that our public engagement efforts with regards to strategies and projects is sort of grounded in our public participation policy, which Council approves. And we actually reviewed and updated that policy just a couple of months ago. And this really provides the framework and guidance for public engagement that's conducted for any specific projects or strategy or planning documents that the town undertakes. With that in mind, as we move forward to plan and prepare for the implementation of either a strategy document, such as the broadband one you're referencing, or other specific projects where we've identified public engagement requirements, we utilize that public participation policy. We work with perhaps either administration consultants that may be involved, as was referenced this evening with the folks from RSM for the broadband strategy, or even specific stakeholder groups that may have a particular guiding hand in these projects. So with that in mind, between the policy as well as the scope and objectives that have been laid out for the specific project, an engagement plan is built into the initial stages of any project. So who are the target audiences for public engagement? What are the outcomes or the specific asks or information that we seek to help inform the work that's going to be undertaken and help inform perhaps either decisions or recommendations that are going to be made. So we either identify broad public participation perhaps, where something is, open to the public, open to all residents or businesses in the community, similar to what was outlined this evening, or perhaps there are specific target audiences or stakeholders that we need to reach out directly to. So in those instances, we employ different tools and tactics of communication to reach those target audiences as best as possible. We utilize, of course, all of our typical communication outlets through social media, signage, newspaper advertising, our website, notification processes. Those are some of our typical tactics that we might employ for broad communication outreach. Drilling down more specifically with stakeholder groups where we want to reach target audiences, we might do something more directive in terms of, perhaps a mail out or something that's more specific, a focus group session or workshop where we invite their participation more directly. Surveys obviously are popular. These, online surveys provide an opportunity. So those are some of the tactics that we employ, and we work with our consultants and our stakeholder groups and administration to identify what's the best slate of tactics that can help us to achieve the highest rate of return on our engagement. So that's sort of the broad context of how we undertake public engagement. In terms of some of the specific things that we do related to I'll speak to the broadband strategy. In many instances, we are following through on the engagement plan as the project progresses, and we are monitoring kind of the uptake and some of the feedback or how we're receiving kind of input from the engagement tactics that we're employing. In some instances, we have a very organic process where we're working to monitor kind of what the response rate has been, perhaps doing some follow-up, perhaps, taking some broader steps if we feel like the tactics are not giving us the results or the uptake that we need. Ultimately, in the end of the day, we have to hit a deadline of when we need to wrap up the engagement in order to summarize and move forward with the project itself. So there's usually a window of time that we can employ these tactics and tools and monitor their effectiveness. But, at the end, with all strategies and planning work that we do around engagement, those results and that information is part of the reports that are presented to council. It's very transparent in terms of, what the level of participation has been, how significant it is. It helps to kind of guide the level of impact that we might put on the results that are provided as part of the engagement. So hopefully that provides a bit of a response to what you're looking for, Councillor Anderson, and I'll just perhaps hand it over to the General Manager of Planning and Infrastructure to begin before referencing the Community and Social Development Strategy.
Thank you, General Manager. Just to follow up on the Significant Names Registry as an update, the Significant Names Registry was advertised in the town's social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Town administration also contacted the Multicultural Heritage Center, the Pioneer Museum, to obtain publicly available information of individuals or relatives or individuals on the draft list. In cases where contact information was not available, town staff attempted to contact individual families to inform them of the survey. The survey is open till February 14th. We have so far received 33 responses, and this will be brought as an update to council on this particular file in April.
Your Worship, through you to Deputy Mayor Anderson and the rest of council. With respect to the Together We Shine, the inclusion strategy public engagement, we launched an online survey in late November. That was open until December 5th. It was advertised in similar channels to the public names register, significant names registry. So news release, digital sign, social media, postcards around town, including at the library. We also hosted an in-person public event on December 5th, tied into the celebration day for International Day of Persons with Disabilities. We convened a meeting of the Community and Social Development Roundtable for more detailed input and insights into the plan. And then in early January, hosted meetings with targeted organizations and individuals. Those targeted meetings were not very well attended. There were a limited number of participants at each one. However, an important part of the strategy is that this public engagement is only the beginning of the conversations with community. It's as much a chance to share with community that the town is focusing on inclusion, equity, and diversity, and to generate some awareness and build understanding for those who are most marginalized within our community. The What We Heard report has been posted on the town website just this afternoon, and so it's a fairly new document there. You will hear more about the What We Heard part of it as we move into sharing more details about the strategy.
Thank you, and I appreciate the commentary from all of our general managers there, and certainly appreciate the work that's done and understand that there's an element of this that is the responsibility of our residents as well. If they want to provide feedback, to engage in that process and to be active in looking for those opportunities and those sorts of things. I want to follow up with a second question, if that's okay, along kind of those same lines. And again, just speaking to some of the response rates, we've kind of had different conversations throughout this term about the response rates to some of our surveys. We heard today from a consultant that the responses were limited. We heard that some of our target meetings and those sorts of things haven't been well attended. And so, as a municipality, I think, there's an element of onus on us to adjust our approach to make sure that we're trying to engage with our residents in a way that makes sense for them as well. And so I guess that's my follow-up question here is, how has our municipality, how has the town adjusted our approach to seeking public input in our public engagement process, with the understanding that maybe we haven't seen a significant amount of engagement for a number of initiatives that have come through the chamber. So to summarize, how has our approach changed, understanding that maybe we're not receiving the quantity of responses that we may be looking for?
Through Councillor Mayor Choi to Councillor Anderson, I would say that probably in terms of how our approach has changed in terms of engagement, my first thought is really around how, the last year has allowed us more of an opportunity to engage more directly with our residents than perhaps the prior 2 years under the health restrictions and the pandemic restrictions. Our engagement directly with citizens really declined during that time because of our limited opportunities to provide engagement. And so, over the last year, I would say we've had more opportunities, more diversity of opportunities to re-engage with our residents and stakeholders around around our planning work, our projects, and our strategies. So this has really been, I would say, beneficial, that it gives us more tools in our toolbox. It also gives us the ability to really adjust as we're observing the level of response and the level of engagement, and try to employ different tactics as we're walking through those engagement efforts, and try to adjust as we go forward. So that's probably the one thing that I think has been really beneficial to us over the last year, is that we have more tools in our engagement toolbox than we had prior to that, and it gives us the opportunity to really utilize those more. The other thing that I would say that has been a learning experience throughout the last few years is online engagement has become more predominant, and trying to ensure the level of qualitative, validated feedback through that. That's something that's been a challenge for us, both with the work that we do with our consultants as well as administration. And so we've been learning and adjusting as to how we can best apply different tools and techniques in an online platform that gives us the qualitative feedback and the validated feedback that we are looking for.
And thank you for that. Just a really quick, piece of commentary, I guess. I know the goal is to ensure that our feedback isn't, isolated in a silo, so to speak, that it's not the same, 50 residents that are providing feedback on, every survey that we put forward or every, public engagement event that we have, that we really want to make sure that we, look at that broad spectrum of, whether that's age demographics or, geographic locations within the community or, whatever that might be. I know we have things like community connector programs and that sort of thing. And, understanding that social media, is an important tool. That's, we've talked today at length about broadband and the importance of being connected. My wonder is if we can leverage some of those individuals that are actively engaged in our community as community connectors or otherwise to more intentionally share those things within their networks. And a simple example of that is the majority of neighborhoods within our community have their own social media groups where they talk about issues within, their neighborhoods and those sorts of things. If there's a way that we can, leverage community connectors or whatever that is from our Neighbors Day programs to ask some of those individuals to share our public engagement opportunities within those neighborhood groups as well, so that it's not just the broad, town of Stony Plain social media, but that we're actually getting into the feeds of the individuals. And, we see this in the media at length, that social media is very good at presenting you with, what you want to see, so to speak. And so if you actively pursue a particular line of thinking, that's what you're going to see. If you actively pursue town opportunities and the town of Stony Plain social media, you're going to start to see more of that. And because of those algorithms, we may have, or do have, I think, a significant population that may not see some of those active engagements that we're trying to get out there. And so I guess the commentary is, maybe there's opportunity for us to adjust our approach. I pulled up our public participation policy that was just approved before Christmas, and a lot of it is kind of the broad thinking around our approach to public consultation, but maybe not the specifics of the how. And I just wonder if there's more specifics to the how that we can look at leveraging to increase our public participation. So,
Your Worship, if I could just respond and add a comment to some of what Councillor Anderson is referencing. One of the initiatives that our administration undertook last year was the Be in the Know campaign, and that really provided us with a bit of direct feedback from residents about how and where and when they are connecting on a communication level with the town, how they're receiving their information, how they want to receive their information, what are the outlets and the tools and the tactics that resonate with them, so that we can refine some of these strategies that we're employing. One of the examples that I would just reference out of that, so that really gave us some good communication auditory data. And we had a really good uptake from the community on that campaign. One of the things that we learned out of that just resonated with me as you were commenting was around the role of council in handing out and connecting with citizens about that campaign. I believe we gave you business cards of some kind to hand out, and that had a really strong impact on that campaign. We had a high uptake of people that we were able to track that actually used the QR codes that were on that. And so it reminded us in administration about the value of the in-person connection around engagement, and that although there are many very effective tools in our online social media platforms, and our community bulletin boards also resonated very highly with citizens in terms of their ability to connect and gather information and opportunities for feedback, but it was also that in-person engagement, that one-on-one, that was a high value. There's a high resource cost to that, but the high value and the return on that can also be beneficial. So how we employ those and the ways that we use those helps us to kind of rethink some of the things that we've done traditionally. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I think just at the end there really resonated with me, the return on investment. And, I think what really sticks out to me is if we're a municipality that, really values the perspective of our residents, and we're really looking for those opportunities for public engagement, that, there has to be a willingness, whether that's council handing out business cards or otherwise, for us to invest that time to make sure that we have that return in terms of the public engagement. So anyway, thank you for that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other questions, comments for clarity? Councillor Meyer, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Turning to page 176, the key action, ensure Stony Plains interests are represented and visible on committees, boards, and plans. I just cast administration's mind back to, I had recounted a story on the Stony Plain Library Board. We had potentially lost a board member, and anyhow, at the time, administration had indicated that there was possibly a review coming down in regards to how we go about recruiting and whatnot. I was just wondering if administration had an update for me at all.
To Councillor Meyer, we are preparing to undertake a review in 2023 of our boards and committees, and so I'll just ask perhaps if our Manager of Legislative Services could speak to any of the specifics of the timing and some of the scope of that work.
Not much of an update at the moment. We're in the beginning stages of the work. It's definitely our top priority for this year to review everything from the bylaws to the terms of reference to how we recruit and retain volunteers. So we will come back to council with an update later in the year, but rest assured it is high priority on our work plan for 2023.
Okay, thank you for that.
Questions, comments? Again, just thank you for the presentation and just the update on the Q4 occurrences and what we've done to continue on the plan to make sure that we meet our strategic plan and our corporate plan. I think Deputy Mayor mentioned about kind of engagement and getting people involved. Even reading this, some of the Q1, stuff, I've even forgot about because, it's been so long ago in terms of that too. So it's nice to have the information brought back every so often. And in terms of accepting this for information a little later on, how do we kind of spread this word out of what we've accomplished over the last year? Is it just goes out into news release, hey, this is what we've all done for the last year, or do we try to highlight different things at different times? Because a lot of times people are busy doing their own lives that they don't have the attention to focus on something.
Your Worship, there's a couple of thoughts I have with regards to your question. So primarily the strategic plan itself is we do have touch points of public information that goes out to share both the plan, the intentions of the plan, and some of the reporting that we do quarterly to you here in the council chambers. to a degree, I would say that that's an important communication outlet, but often the real impact and understanding of the progress and the value of the work that we do around the strategic plan really resonates with citizens and stakeholders in the community when we speak to the specific projects and the initiatives that are impactful to them and valued by them, and seeing that progress moving forward, often probably has more of a resonating value than the strat plan itself. And it pains me to say that as, the strategic planning general manager of strategic planning services, but I also appreciate that what matters most to the citizens and the community members are the projects that are important to them. And so there's a bit of a balance point of communicating and sharing the overarching plans and the progress that we do with the incremental and impactful projects and initiatives that specifically reach our residents and citizens.
Okay. I appreciate that. Then, just for example, on page 179, there's a couple of initiatives that, were highlighted that we will see in terms of, the shop this season and be in the know that was mentioned on page 178. Those things are part of our strategic plan, but they're also part of our third quarter and fourth quarter highlights as well. So I think there's some overlap there, and I think we need to continue to pull nuggets out of our strategic plan so that we can focus on it. So again, keep the residents informed as much as possible. As mentioned, we're all busy, so not everybody takes 3 hours to read the agenda package 2 or 3 times to understand what's going on. So it's nice that we're able to, as an organization, to pull that out and then highlight those areas. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Seeing none, Councillor Hansard for the motion, please.
Your Worship, I move that strategic and corporate plan quarterly for 2022 report be accepted for information.
Thank you. Members of Council, any questions, comments, and debate on the motion to accept for information? Okay. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay. And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on with agenda number 7 is council discussion. So we'll start with Councilor Peshko. Anything that you want to bring up or highlight to council and to administration?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hansard.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one thing, basically. I was privileged to attend on your behalf the presentation of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee Medals to Paula Adamitz and Frank Florkowicz. Took place in Stony Plain at the Chamber office. There were quite a few people present, and they were very pleased to be recognized for their many volunteer hours and the good work they've done in the community.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes, and congratulations to both Paula and Frank for the work that they do in the communities to, again, build the sense of community in Stony Plain, Spruce Grove, and Parkland County. Councillor Loyens.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to mention that on February 10th from 1 to 4, there is a suicide prevention training taking place at Forest Green Plaza. And just a reminder, it's okay to not be okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think mental health is it's a thing that we should talk about more openly as the members of council in our community so that we can all address it together. Nobody needs to tackle it alone and by yourself, because that's when we actually have a losing battle. We definitely need the support of our friends and families and our community to make sure that we do have a good community that has mental health support systems within that helps everybody. Thank you for bringing that forward. Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Your Worship. Appreciate this past Saturday, the RCMP hosted Spruce Grove Stony Plain Council for a tour of their detachment, as well as a good information session. Gave us a little bit more detail than we kind of get in the short presentations we get here. Great opportunity to have some dialogue and ask some questions. So great appreciation goes out to them. Just a reminder that, again, the Coldest Night Walk is coming up in about 2.5 weeks. We had the presentation today. Unfortunately, unfortunately hearing that they are behind in where they anticipated to be for the fundraising goals. So for those of you participating, I encourage you to reach out to your network and seek some donations so that we can help support the food bank. If you look at the statistics that Sherry sent around, it's quite alarming at the number of people that food bank supports. So appreciate your participation in that.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will try to be very quick. I feel like I've spoken probably far too much for some people's liking this evening. So a couple of quick things. I had the privilege of representing the town at the Light Up Your Life tri-community volunteer lunch here recently, and just was humbled by the work that they do in caring for those who need end-of-life care, caring for not just those who need that specific care, but their families and loved ones as well. They have a really exciting capital project coming up here that, well, I shouldn't say coming up, is well underway, to bring some new life into the work that they do at Westview Health Center, and so something to keep an eye on. Second to that, February 10th to 13th, Spruce Grove, I know we're in Stony Plain, but they're doing a rooftop camp out for muscular dystrophy. The reason I bring it forward this evening is we have individuals in our community who have benefited from this fundraiser directly in terms of receiving accessibility support and aids for their home. And so just want to recognize that fundraiser is underway at the Spruce Grove Fire Department, as well as Save on Foods and Superstore over the weekend. And then finally, just want to recognize, our small businesses for a second in terms of what they bring to our community. They create a great community for us to live, work, and play. And we know that money spent in those small businesses tends to stay in our community, and their economic impact is multiplied. Right? Dollars spent in those businesses tend to be respent in our community over and over again. Having said that, we have Valentine's Day coming up, and we have tremendous businesses in our community offering, whether it's gifts and gadgets and flowers and bouquets, or restaurants offering fancy Valentine's special menus and those sorts of things. But really want to encourage our residents to stay local, shop local, play local, as you're looking towards your plans for Valentine's Day. And with that, on Wednesday, it's actually half-price Parkland, so I think there's 26 different businesses, a number in Stony Plain, that offer discounts for their services, and again, restaurants, hotels, family events, and otherwise. And so lots happening, and just really want to recognize what our small businesses bring to us, and encourage our residents to shop locally here. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor. Councillor Meyer.
Yep. Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Councillor Justin, for highlighting the shop local message. That's great. I did want to just make administration aware of one issue. As I was driving north out of town this morning, I thought we had taken down all our Christmas lights in the Rotary Park, but I figure there must be some type of electrical issue, because I see the electronic sign that we share with the chambers was also not working. So I'm curious if administration is aware, or if they know what's going on.
Your Worship, through the Councillor, thank you for the comment. I'll be following up with staff on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? No. With that, again, thank you very much, administration, for providing those updates and the reports back to council. And again, thank you, council members, for reading it and then bringing those questions for clarity and understanding. Those are good strategies and reports that we received for us, as mentioned by the general manager, for us to actually carry that message and share it with the residents. As we know, the best way to get the message out is through the word of mouth. We can do all the advertising we want and stuff, but it's those connections that you make. So if you're not able to connect with individuals and share with information, it doesn't really sink in. We're all busy people, so it does take a little time, because we know all the big classic examples, right? There's, for example, you drive everywhere every day, but once you buy a certain car or make a car, you see that everywhere you go. right? Because, your brain just doesn't have the capacity to hold that information until you actually get there. So this is the same thing with a lot of things that we do in our community. We are busy, and a lot of things that happen are not registering. And we just need to continue to share that message and engage our residents again and again. I just want to piggyback on what Deputy Mayor and Councillor Meyer said in terms of thanking our local businesses. This Saturday is February 11th, which is the February Frenzy within the downtown core and just throughout the surrounding areas of Stony Plain. So I'm just going to list off the names because I just received the email poster. So if you're out and about this Saturday, so please support local. And the people that are currently part of the February Frenzy is Bakecraft Boutique Bakery, Barn Owl, Blue Bond Smoke and Vape, Blue Diamond Jewelers, Busy Bees Workshop, Classic Replay, Could Chuck Wood Market, Crystal Culture, Dara's Luxury Decor and Coffee Bar, Homegrown Foods, Joe's Yarn Barn, Kick-Ass Caramels, Country Corner Crafts, Magic Happens, Mint Pharmacy, Martin Farmhouse, One Man's Treasure, the Parkland Partners Guild and Crooked Pot Gallery, Parkland Ventures Thrift Store, Plains Wines, Beers and Spirits, the Pretzel Shack, Rocket and Rue, Shelley's Finds, Spring Lake Naturals, Stony Plain Game and Collectibles, Stony Plain Public Library, the local Refillery, Village Fashions, and Whimsical Vintage Creations. So again, talking about supporting local businesses, as mentioned by a Deputy Mayor, the dollars that we spend in our community tend to get turned over in the community 7 to 8 times before it leaves the community. So if you have the opportunity this Saturday, sounds like it's going to be a nice day. February Frenzy, everybody. With that, thank you, and we're adjourned. Good work, guys.